Welcome to episode 4 of the Ego Chall Podcast. My name is Preston Byers, and I'm with Justin Binkowski as usual. And today we're going to be talking about Major 1 of the Call of Duty League. And we actually have some RosterMania news, or I guess like Benchamania news, Ultra benching methods. We have the French Phenom, HyDra, arriving in America. Some GAs, a new meta because of GAs. We're going to try to update our power rankings. We did pre-stage 1 power rankings, so we're going to do a post-stage 1, pre-stage 2 power rankings, and maybe do like an MVP or Rookie of the Year at the moment kind of thing. I don't think we did that before stage 1, but I kind of meant to, but we just didn't do it.
You did Rookie of the Year, I think.
Okay. So how you doing, Bink?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing pretty well. I was actually pretty surprised to see we got RosterMania on like a random Wednesday, and definitely not this team.
Yeah.
So let's start off stage 1 major. This was a $500,000 tournament, and similar to COD Champs last year, double elimination. The top 6 teams, I believe, start in the winners bracket. Everybody else starts in the losers bracket. Is that correct?
What'd you say? 8? 6.
6, right?
It was 6 in winners bracket.
Yes.
I don't remember. Last year might have been 8 and 4, but this one was definitely 6.
Yeah. So like the top 3 from the groups, from each group, started in the winners bracket, and after 5 days of tournament play, FaZe crushed the Dallas Empire in the grand finals to win the $200,000 grand prize. They smoked everybody, to be quite frank. They were 9-4 in hardpoint, 11-1 in search, and 6-3 in control. I don't know what you want to do for this. I don't know if you want to go match by match or kind of like overarching theme of the tournament.
Yeah, I don't want to go match by match because we got a lot to talk about. But we pulled up the bracket for those of you watching either live now or in video form later. Bracket will be on screen, so if you want to take a look at how the tournament broke down, you can do that. But some of the biggest takeaways, I would say, aside from what you were touching on with FaZe, was that starting out down low, the Mutineers came out and won 2 matches in the losers bracket. Started out, I believe they went up 2-0 against New York in their 3rd match and then got reverse swept.
Mm-hmm.
So Florida looked a little better in this tournament, kind of maybe a little bit closer to what some people were expecting from them going into the season. Obviously, they were one of the weaker teams in stage 1 group play, so that might be a sign of better things to come for them moving forward. Other than that, if we also look at the first round of the winners bracket, notably Optic swept New York. That'll be important later on. And the Gorillas swept the LA Thieves, which was arguably one of the biggest upsets, at least early in the tournament. Most people would have thought the Thieves would take that one. Yeah, I don't know if you got anything you want to chip in. I'm kind of just rambling, but those are some of the stuff.
I do think the Gorillas beating the Thieves, I think that's the biggest upset of anything in this tournament, to be honest. Obviously we'll get the subliners and stuff like that. That's a really big upset, but I think most people thought, so like the Thieves were a match away from being the number 1 seed in their group, but they lost to the Empire, and Gorillas were 2-3 in groups, and they did not look particularly good in a lot of their games. But to come out and sweep them in the opening winners bracket round, I think that's a really big shocker. And I mean, let's just talk a little about Florida, because like the first 2 days, that was like really exciting from them, because we got to see Awakening and Skies like be superstars, and we saw how good Skies could be last year, and we saw how good I'm echoing, I think. I don't know if it's you or me.
Whoops.
Either way, I think we got to see Big Wake kind of do his thing. We didn't get to see it as much last year since he didn't sub in until like the back third of the season, but they looked really, really good. Like Paris, I think is a lot better. They're definitely a lot better than I gave them credit for, but they they just looked like they just couldn't finish Florida off, and that's partially because of Skies and Big Wake. Um, what else do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Rocker losing? We could talk about Toronto or Minnesota really losing and losers.
Yeah, I mean, we can touch on all that. I think most people would have expected Rocker to win their second or their first round, their first matchup, the second round of the losers bracket. Toronto obviously wins 2 matches in this tournament, but it's against London and then the Rocker, and then they get 3-0 swept by the Thieves. So kind of hard to tell how much you can take away from that. And obviously the organization was not pleased with the results. And as we'll talk about later, they made a change today, the first major roster change we've seen so far since Stage 1 ended. So I'm not remembering the series too much off the top of my head.
What, Minnesota Toronto?
Minnesota Toronto, yeah.
I definitely was not paying attention as closely to this series as I was to the other ones because I kind of just figured Toronto did not look particularly good against London, who had absolutely no practice with Zed. And I guess that's something we just need to touch on a little bit is Alex left the team like pretty abruptly before the major, I think a day before the major, a day of, for personal reasons. There was no further explanation given. But he left the team. He has actually returned to Europe, as far as I know, and I mean, he won't be coming back, obviously, for the beginning of Stage 2. I think I don't know if they've said it, but I think the rumor is that Zed will continue to sub in his absence. But Toronto looked, they barely survived against London in that first matchup, and then they upset Minnesota, but Minnesota's just like, they're so bad in hardpoint, and that's hard to overcome if you barely can win any hardpoints.
Yeah, I pulled up the results real quick, and so that was obviously a 3-2 with Toronto winning both hardpoints. Minnesota won the first search 6-5, so that was close. They won the control too, and then Toronto won Miami search game 5-6-1. So, especially for Minnesota, who's looked strong in search, it's maybe a little concerning that they lost the game 5 that convincingly. I don't really know why I can't remember that series as much because I obviously was watching it, but yeah. So that's how that went down.
And then I guess we'll just kind of move along, and obviously HyDra got knocked out in the next round, like you said, by the Thieves, and then the Subliners reverse swept the Mutineers and knocked them out of the tournament. And I guess that was a particularly like notable series just because Big Wake went off. I think he had like a 1.9 KD throughout the entire series, and no one else on his team had a positive KD. And it was kind of the same, I think, on the other side with, I want to say Diamond Con was like 1.2-ish KD, and then everybody else was kind of even. But Big Wake was not happy. I think on Twitter he said we threw, or like we were trolling because like nobody played well except him, which is I think I said in the group chat that it was very similar to like a Seattle series from last year where Octane is doing his thing and his teammates aren't really keeping up.
Yeah, I think I remember Slack tweeted something out too after the series about them like just not showing up for those last 3 maps. If we look at the scores, Florida wins Garrison Hardpoint to kick it off 250-241, and then they win Checkmate Search and Destroy 6-5. So both those matches are pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And Checkmate Control goes to New York 3-1, Checkmate Hardpoint 250-193 New York, and then Miami Search was 6-3 New York. So New York's win were a little bit not, I don't want to say convincing, but they were a little, they weren't as close as Florida's victories. But that I think personally that it's a bigger takeaway for Florida. Obviously, we see later in the tournament what New York goes on to do. So if Florida is playing better against a team, obviously they beat Seattle and Paris, who are considered lesser teams by many pundits. so far at least. And if they're playing New York close, who's able to perform better in this tournament, it might be a sign of them improving or maybe having a better performance in stage 2.
Yeah, they definitely. I think Florida definitely proved how good they could be because in group play they were kind of trash. Like they looked very unorganized or disorganized. But in all three of their matches, they showed that they can be like a top half of the league team. Especially with the subliners, how well they did, like you said, pushing them, and they probably should have beaten them had anyone stepped up to really help Big Wake. They did a pretty good job, but they, I think, finished in 7th or something like that, tied for 7th. In the winners bracket, we don't really need to talk about FaZe Gorillas. It was one-sided. FaZe swept, which was just kind of how FaZe did the entire tournament. But in the big match, we had Empire versus Optic, and this was actually a really good series. I think it got over 100,000 viewers on YouTube, and people were really excited about it. And it went down to Game 5, I believe, round 11.
Yep.
And I think it was Hook just slipping under wing by Envoy, and he didn't know it, and he flanked, and I think he got 2 kills or 1 kill, and Empire cleaned up and won round 11 and sent Optic down to the losers bracket. And then what do you think about this series? Because it was obviously, I mean, NV versus Optic is a classic rivalry in COD. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so just looking at the stats on paper, Dallas won both hard points. You probably wouldn't expect that if you're like predicting the match ahead of time. Let's say if you think Dallas wins both hard points, you don't think it's going to go to a Game 5 because you most likely assume Dallas wins Game 2 search.
Yeah.
But, honestly, I think the biggest thing for me, it's going to take away from talking about FaZe a little later, but like FaZe looked head and shoulders above Empire in both of the series that they played. And Dallas looked like a good team in all of their matches, but this was obviously their closest one. So I think this just like goes to show how far ahead FaZe is right now in comparison to the rest of the teams. If the Empire's playing, Optic close like this, but not really hanging with FaZe. Obviously, they ended up taking 2 maps in that best of 9, but still, it was an 8-2 map count in this tournament. Like, can't really say that's close. Just that difference, I think, goes to show how dominant FaZe is at this stage. And maybe things will change in stage 2 with GAs and shift in the meta, etc. But at least talking about the stage 1 major, FaZe is far and away the best team. And it's kind of like, FaZe is 1 all the way up here, Empire's 2 a little further down, and then Chicago's 3 in my eyes. But like the difference between Dallas and Optic is not as big as the difference between Atlanta and Dallas, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we only got to see FaZe 2 opponents, only Gorillas and Empire, because Empire got back to the grand finals. But in both of those or all 3 of those matchups or both of those opponents, they did not seem to struggle one bit. Like Empire took 2 maps, and I believe one of them was Control, where they dominated, and Hardpoint, where they dominated. But when it came to Search, and in like this kind of grand final where you don't really have like a traditional like grand finals like format, like getting just destroyed in Search is not good. Like,
nope.
Like in a regular series, you can bounce back because you know that you have the Control up next, and then you'll have a hard point, and then hopefully you have an S&D map that you're comfortable on. But in every single instance, FaZe demolished Empire on Search, and it like the end of Raid Search, where they're trying to assassinate Krim for the final kill. That just shows that they didn't have any issues. Like, this is the defending world champions. Crimsix is the best Call of Duty player of all time, the most winningest Call of Duty player of all time, and they're trying to assassinate him in a $500,000 tournament. That just shows how, like you said, just how far away they are in the lead over these other teams.
To be fair, I was definitely cheering for the assassination just because I think it's hilarious. But to be fair, they were doing that when they were up 5-2, I believe. They're up 5-2, and it was in a 4v1. So they got the first 3 kills. So, like, I don't think we see FaZe go for that if it's a 1v1 or even a 2v2 in that situation.
Yeah.
But just because they had the numbers advantage, it worked out. So I don't think that, like, the assassination attempt, wow, that sounds weird to say. I don't think, like, them going for the execute there is, like, a narrative example of how dominant they are, but it would have been cool to see. But yeah, I just and Simp shooting bodies. I'm glad he brought that out. That was kind of funny too. Some people might get butthurt over that, but
no, not on this podcast. I love it. Like, I mean, if you get mad about it, then it's kind of like when a pitcher gets mad at like a guy late in a baseball game hitting a home run. It's like, if you didn't want him to hit a home run, don't let him do it. You know, like if you're mad at like someone shooting bodies, then shoot their body or kill them so many times that they really can't do anything. They can't taunt you. So I don't like that part of it is just like so stupid. And I'm sure that Simp did get some backlash on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Because when he did it against Huntsman last year, people were like sending him death threats and everything. So I'm sure that Empire fans weren't happy, but like, who cares? Like, I just want the shit talk. I want people to shoot bodies. Like, it's so much more fun in COD when guys can like let loose and kind of show their personalities a little bit.
Yep.
And this is a Simp thing too. Like, Simp knows he's so good, and like when he gets on fire, I think it's more like he just gets caught up in the moment, and it's like, I'm just going to shoot like Shotzi's body, which is incredible.
Yeah. So we kind of skipped ahead there to the finals, but
you want to just talk about the Optic subliners?
That's all. Yeah, I was just gonna say, other than talking about how successful FaZe was in this tournament, the other big theme that we haven't really hit on was subliners run through the losers bracket. They have that reverse sweep against Florida, and then they go on to beat the Gorillas, and they sweep Optic after, as we already talked about, Optic swept them in the first round in the winners bracket. And there was some drama with Diamond Con snaking on Crossroads, and there was drama between Clay pulling up the tweet about Dashy saying like he's not going to succeed without Illy Shotzi Hook or the Tiny Terrors. But all that aside, I think that's just a really good sign of things to come for New York. Obviously, we're going to touch on HyDra a little bit later, but I think that makes that decision, it seems like they already know what they're going to do, at least for now, but I think it makes that decision a little bit harder with New York getting a third place finish in the first major.
Yeah, they looked, so they kind of just looked off against Optic in the winners bracket, and then it was the complete opposite in the losers bracket. Maybe it was because they got some momentum. They had already beaten Florida and LAG heading into that, but against Optic, we should mention that they kind of did unorthodox veto picks, so they went with maps that neither them or Optic had really played. I believe Checkmate Control, Optic had played a few times and had won everything, but I don't know what the exact maps. I know they played Garrison S&D, which Optic I don't think had ever played before this season, or if they did, they played LA Thieves like an hour before or something. And then the hard point, the same thing. It was Optic had either played it once or had never played it. So like New York, maybe they kind of knew this. Like maybe they knew, like, we've been working on these maps, we've just never got to really show them off in a match, and this is the perfect time. Optic, we know what they like to do. obviously those veto picks of the last series where they got swept, not a good idea. Probably don't go back to those. So like let's go with a little bit different map set, and they absolutely smoked them. That Garrison S&D, I obviously don't play, but people were saying that this is a very hard map for offenses for Search, and they schooled Optic over and over again. I think they won 3 offensive rounds out of 7 rounds. That's incredible. And Diamond Con nearly had an ace in 1 round just by defending 1 bomb site, where Optic was just like, yeah, like let's just fly out A, guys, and I'm sure this will be fine. And they all died. So New York just looked more prepared, and I'm sure Optic won't let that happen next time. Like they'll definitely be working on these maps, especially when they know they have to play New York.
Yep, I think that was a good point. Obviously, we'll find out the groups later this week. I think Crone tweeted that the group show is on Friday or something along that lines. But
Okay.
you would assume, just based on the standings from the major, that New York and Optic won't be in the same group.
Yeah, you would assume that.
But you never know how it's going to shake out. But that was still interesting, just considering the Optic swept New York, to see the absolute reverse happen, and their rematch in the loser bracket was very surprising.
Yep. And I think let's just touch on this Empire Subliners match, because this is a rematch of a very good meeting in group stage where Empire reverse swept Subliners, and this time they swept them. It wasn't, as far as I remember, like particularly close, and I'm not sure. What were you saying?
Just the scores, suggest it was close. It was 250, 213 Hardpoint, 265 Search, and 3-2 Dallas.
Okay, I don't
was there
remember
a crazy
a lot.
control round in that one? I don't really remember either. It was checkmate control, so I don't really remember.
I think I was like having a smoke break or something after.
A smoke break?
No, I was. I'm pretty sure I was just recovering from FaZe absolutely demolishing Dallas, and yeah, I don't really remember a lot from that series. A lot of these series kind of blur together.
Yeah.
So I mean, there were like 15 matches, and this was just a few days after we finished 20 matches in Super Week. So we've seen a lot of Call of Duty, and everything just kind of meshes together. But I just think it's interesting that Empire, despite getting waxed by FaZe like 30 minutes before, and despite having a really close series with New York the first time they met, they swept them in the loser bracket finals.
Actually, I do remember now, just off the top of my head, that there was like some stat that in the first Crossroads Hardpoint against New York, Hook dropped almost as many kills in that one Hardpoint map as he did in the entire series against FaZe in the winners final. It was something along those lines. So obviously that definitely played a factor in the results of both series. But yeah, that's just something I just remembered off the top of my head. I think we pretty much touched on everything we want to touch on in the major. The big takeaways, obviously, were, for me at least, Florida kind of, showing up a little bit more than some people might have expected, maybe looking a little better heading into stage 2. New York certainly looking like, a top half team, especially, they performed well in stage 1 group play, but they exceeded most people's expectations, at least in this major, by coming in 3rd. And then FaZe just, absolutely asserted dominance and proved they're the best team right now.
Yep. And on the back of that, we're going to talk about Toronto benching Methodz. This was the first roster change of the Young Call of Duty League season. So Methodz actually broke this. Nobody else did. He went on Twitter today, and he wanted to get out in front of it. Let me pull up this tweet real quick. And he said, before it comes from anyone else, I've been benched by Ultra, not really sure what to say or do. This is my best game since World War II, and obviously wasn't expecting this. I appreciate the support in advance. And Toronto, I don't believe, has said anything on the matter. But it appears that Insight is going to replace him, because Methodz replaced Insight on his Challengers team. So Methodz is gonna play Challengers with Decimate, Draza, and Twerk, I think.
Yep.
So I guess like what do you make of the meme now is gonna be no Zenny, no Winnie. So what do you think of Methodz being the first player to be benched in the CDL season?
First off, I really hope that catches on because that's fun. But second off, I see two sides to this. Obviously, my immediate reaction, like just seeing that tweet on the timeline this afternoon, I was just like, wow, holy shit, I can't believe Methodz is benched. But like, if you go back and think about it a little bit, it makes a little bit more sense. Early in, I believe it was the middle of October, Toronto signs Insight as their substitute player. Insight is European. The three other guys on Toronto right now, Bance, Cammy, and Kleenex, they're also European players. Insight has chemistry playing with Kleenex on that Singularity team in Black Ops 4. And the head coach of Toronto, Marky B, I think they also have an assistant coach who's European. I could be wrong on that, but I know obviously Marky B is European. So when Insight was picked up, I obviously don't know much about him, but I've heard that he's a pretty solid main AR. So Zenny's a main AR. Insight, apparently is a main AR. So that when you see them sign Insight as a substitute, that kind of, sparks a bulb, and it's like, hold up, maybe they're looking to make a move here. And I hadn't really thought about it to any extent because I thought Methodz was playing pretty well, at least, Florida might have struggled in the group play of stage 1, but I definitely didn't think they would be one of the teams to make a change. Most certainly, I didn't think they would be the first team to make a change after stage 1. So, yeah, I guess, the writing might have been on the wall if you, think about it a little bit, but definitely was a surprise to me.
Yeah, so just as a little bit of background, like you said, Bance is English, Cammy is Scottish, Kleenex is Danish, and Insight is English as well. And then obviously you have Marky B, Scottish, and Flux, their analyst, he is English. So they have a very, very heavily European team. They're actually the most European team in the entire league because I think
Parasite.
Yeah.
London would be there too because they have a bunch of coaches, so they would technically be slightly ahead of current Toronto if Zero wasn't dealing with the visa issues.
Yeah. But, so they had that. But I don't know if this was like a plot. Like some people have been suggesting that they've been eyeing it, okay, when can we get rid of someone to bring up Insight? And this is a good time, I think, to bring up Insight if there was ever a good time, because his team, he was teaming with Decimate, Draws, and Twerk in Challengers. They won the last week's Cup, and then they won the first Open of the North American Challengers series. So I don't know, obviously something did not click fully in stage 1 for Toronto because I predicted them to be Optic, and I thought they would be in a top 4 or 5 kind of situation, and I believe they finished top 8. And to get to top 8, they had to win 2 matches. So obviously something was not right in there. I also want to say that we shouldn't be as surprised that Toronto is the team that made this move because if we remember in the first season of CDL, they were one of the only teams to field all 10 players or to have all 10 players, and they were kind of more traditional sports-minded where it's okay, where can we sub in a player or something. I think Marky B and that Toronto front office has a very different way of thinking about how to manage a roster than a lot of traditional COD people do.
But the only thing, don't want to cut you off, but the only thing I'll say to that is that Methodz was that constant, all throughout last year. They had Brack, obviously, which there was issues there with him and payment or whatever was going on with, I don't remember those off the top of my head, but it was something going on with that. But basically in my head you have Methodz as the main AR on that Toronto lineup last year, and Brack is the substitute main AR. So they never felt the need last year to bring Brack in for Methodz, but now they have decided to go with Insight instead of Methodz. I don't want to say like it's some big conspiracy theory or anything like that, but
it just some people were saying like, oh, he didn't even have a shot. It's like, I mean, that's not true, because if they finished like third or fourth in this stage, I don't think that he would have gotten benched.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a good point. That's something I probably should have thought about that I didn't. But you know, he's benched for now. He's gonna play in challengers, so maybe, you know, with Toronto's experimentation that we saw last year, there's a chance he'll be back in the Toronto's lineup at some point. Who knows? Or maybe Insight's just absolutely gross and Toronto wins champs.
I also think that Toronto is not afraid to make a unpopular decision, because they, I mean, I don't know when this was, but they definitely benched Classic last season for like a week or something of practice, because he decided to go home to New York, and they require all their players to play in Toronto. So, I mean, that was a very unpopular decision. I think Classic made his way back into the lineup. He didn't miss anything really except practice, but just the fact that they were willing to do it and like stand by that decision, I think says a lot about how Toronto is run.
Yep, that's a good point.
So, technical difficulties. I don't know what actually happened. My girlfriend is watching Netflix in our bedroom, and she had no issue, and it was just my computer. OBS said that it couldn't connect. Discord said it couldn't connect. Twitter just kept loading and loading, and it never loaded. So not sure what happened there, but sorry for that. We were talking about HyDra. HyDra coming to America, and he is now on, well, according to Crone, that's where I was trying to pull up Crone's tweet. So our boy Crone, I don't know what the exact tweet is because my notes aren't working anymore, but essentially he said that HyDra is going to be replacing GeoFrosty. Is that how you say
it?
GlowFrosty. I can never tell if it's an I or an L. He replaced GlowFrosty on the Subliners Academy team, and so GlowFrosty is, I believe, going to Wester. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's been a lot of challengers, RosterMania, because of like what's happening with NYSL, who won the Elite in Stage 1, and Wester, who formerly were the best team, and now you have Insight leaving challengers, presumably to join the Ultra, and Methodz coming down to replace him. So what do you think of HyDra coming to America and starting off in the challengers?
Yeah, so I think most importantly, we were talking either last episode or the episode before that about HyDra's impact because it was around that time that Crone was talking about him potentially, you know, figuring out that visa situation, and we were like, okay, who do we think HyDra replace on the subliners? I think it was after only the first week of
they lost one match
because they had only played one match. Yeah, and I was like, oh, maybe Mac, because Mac hadn't played so well in that match, and like, you know, Asim on paper, well, I was like that their roles might match up the best, and you know, there was a bunch of question marks, but again, we had such a small sample size, it was tough to tell. And now it looks like, you know, HyDra's here, but he's not going to be in the big leagues right off the bat. Some people might have expected that, but you know, especially after New York comes in third place in the major, they're, at least for now, it seems like they're going to stick with their current four-man team of Clay, Mac, Diamond Khan, and Asim. So it might not be what some people expected, but I think this is good for HyDra. It'll give him a chance to, you know, get acclimated to playing in the NA scene, which I believe he was playing a little bit in EU Challengers, at least. He might have been playing with Whalers. I remember him. But yeah, so I think this will be a good start for him, and you know, maybe if he sees a lot of success immediately in NA challengers, he'll get the call up. But I don't think New York is in any hurry to make a change right now.
No, we were actually when we were talking about it originally. It was after New York had lost to LA Thieves. That was their only match, and we were saying like, well, what if they rebound and they get like top 4? Well, they got third, so and I think we both agreed like if you get there, you can't just like break up the team to bring in HyDra and like bench someone, especially with the amount of practice, like the relatively little practice they have with this 4, to just kind of get rid of Asim or Mac, and which we kind of agreed that they weren't going to bench Diamond, Khan, or Clay. Definitely not Clay for HyDra. So yeah, I think it's good, like you said, that he spend some time in challengers and essentially wait until the subliners sink, basically. Like, if they finish like 6th in this stage, yeah, he's probably going to make an appearance. But it feels like, unless, like, I feel like the best possible, like, situation for him would be that they don't completely tank and finish like 11th or something in this stage, but finish like 5th or 6th and decide to make a change right after stage 2, where he'll have like a week and a half of practice where it's just him playing with them. Because if they try to incorporate him at any time during the stage, it's kind of like, okay, like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're pretty much just chalking the rest of the stage.
Yeah, I think the 6th might be a little too it might be too good of a placement for them to make a change. Obviously it wouldn't, if they come in 6th in stage 2, it's obviously worse than their 3rd place placing, but I don't think that's like, like a, stop everything, let's make a change right away. I think most people, if we look at the bracket, New York loses their first match to Chicago. I mean, yeah, I think most people had them in that top 6 range. Like, if they didn't upset, or if they didn't beat the Gorillas in that match, they would have got top 6. So, there's a long way of me saying I don't think if they get top 6 in stage 2, they're gonna, just immediately throw HyDra in. They very well could. But I think maybe if they get, top 8 or worse than top 6, I think top 6 is that threshold where, if they're way below it, they might make a change. If their top 6 are better, they might not.
Yeah, I believe it would probably come down to just how they got top 6. If they collapse, like they look really good, and then they just pretty much collapse in maybe the major or something, then you could see it. To go back to, like you said, HyDra was actually playing with Whalers for most of this season in challengers, in the European challenger scene. Actually, he started with Weeman, Nolson, and Joe, and then Team Sween.
Hell yeah.
He actually played as Team Sween for the 3rd European Cup.
No way.
And then
awesome.
he's played with Whalers, Keza, Henry for most of the rest of the season, and they finished 3rd in the Elite Europe Stage 1 playoffs as Trainhard. So, I mean, he's done pretty well. I mean, I haven't really heard about his individual performance, but at least his team's performances, that's pretty good. So, I mean, I'm interested to see. Like, there's been so much hype about him, and the fact that we didn't actually get to see him in a real competitive setting because of these visa issues, it just makes it a little more intriguing now that he's come in with New York at a pretty good spot.
Yep, I think that's the biggest takeaway is most people, or not most people, but many people might have expected him to come to America and immediately be slotted into the starting lineup at the CDL level. That's not happening, but now people get to see him perform in North America, and I, for one, haven't seen a lot of him playing, and I'm excited to get to see him do that moving forward.
Let's move on to our next topic, which are GAs. So I don't know what the entire list of GAs, because it kind of seems like they're testing stuff, or like I don't know if they've actually set like if they're 100% set on some of these, but I believe that XM4s have been GA'd by the pros. So it's now like what a Krig AK meta.
Yeah, so I don't think Crone has updated his roster or not RosterMania, his gentleman's agreement article yet, but it definitely seems like they're testing stuff out right now, and it almost seems like 100% certainty that the M4 will not be involved in stage 2 unless there's some like weapon balancing changes. Um, there's been some rumblings about the QBZ, which is another assault rifle in Cold War. I believe some of the pro teams, I saw Clayster in particular, was trying it out yesterday in scrims, but I also saw that the European amateurs are already trying to GA the QBZ, so
Mm-hmm.
that's also to be determined at this point. I just think the overall theme of GAs right now at this point is that the pros are trying to do what they can to make the game more competitive in their viewpoint. I think the XM4 was a really good gun. I don't know if, it definitely seemed like it was a little bit overpowered, but I also think the 74U is overpowered to the same extent. So that's another thing. The pros are trying to GA the muzzle attachment on the 74U to kind of compensate for that, but I don't know how much you can compare GAing an entire gun to a single attachment. Besides the point, I don't want to ramble on it too much until we know for certain what's going on, but it certainly seems like the pros are trying to take matters into their own hands. We really haven't had a weapon balance patch that I can really remember in recent history. I mean, we might not even have had that major one since the FAMAS, the FFAR, was nerfed early in the game. So, yeah, it's been a while. Maybe the devs will step in and do something to, tune down the XM4 and the 74U so that they can both be used. The XM4 can be brought back in if it's actually G8, and the 74U can be used with, all its attachments, all that. But yeah, that's kind of going to be a waiting game until we see how things shape out for stage 2.
And I don't really follow like the guns. Like I'm more into the players and like the storylines and stuff. So not as much of the gameplay, but it definitely seems that there's like a lot of contention as there are with like most GAs, because to be GA'd it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision. It's not like every pro has to agree to anything, but it seems like a lot of AR players are pissed about it because you're taking away what you said is a pretty good gun and giving them obviously not as good of a gun, or at least not in the same way. And a BZ on a Twitch set, this was a screenshot provided to Crone that he tweeted. He said that FaZe subliners in the Seattle Surge were against the recent GAs according to a BZ. So like, and I've seen a lot of like Clay has been tweeting about it a lot. Octane, they've been saying like basically, why is it always ARs that get like the cut? And I think the easiest answer would probably be because there are more SMGs in the entire league. So if you can get most of those SMG players to agree to it, that's the majority of the league right there. And I don't know, I just think GAs in general are pretty unpopular by among fans. So you have like this kind of this contingent among fans that really hate when like Slasher goes on Twitter and talks about a GA. It's kind of entertaining, but it's obviously would be fixed if we could just get weapon balancing like a normal game. And I don't know, it's annoying, but that's kind of how we are in COD.
Yep, I think that's the biggest takeaway from GAs right now. I think it's good that the pros are trying to find a way to their standards make the game competitively viable as best they can, but at the same time, I don't want to see people, Seattle had that meme, I don't want to see 8 guys running around with knives. Like we got to figure something out here where we got like you said, maybe the devs have to step in and give us some weapon balancing, but really we haven't seen that yet, and I think that's the biggest thing that we're gonna need to see. Maybe, you know, if it doesn't happen this year, certainly in the years to come, we're gonna need that developer support from that standpoint of balancing the weapons at least. It seems like Treyarch has been receptive to a lot of feedback though, so hopefully we get some changes soon.
Yep. In the same vein, we actually have some teams testing out new maps, particularly Apocalypse and Express. Optic, they liked scrimming Hardpoint on Apocalypse. I believe BBG, which is GodRex's challenger team, they tweeted that they were enjoying Apocalypse as well. I know you said you hadn't played Apocalypse, but what do you think about two new maps potentially being, well, Express is an old map, but a new map for competitive right now being added into the rule set?
Yeah, so I haven't played Apocalypse yet because I mainly played GBs or League Play when I'm on COD. But I saw the end of Optic scrimming LA Thieves today on it, and LA Thieves ended up winning that match, but they were ahead, and then Optic got like a 60-point hill towards the end, so it was like 250, 230, I believe. And they seemed for the most part to like it. It seemed like there were a little bit of higher kill numbers, but, you know, maybe that's just, you know, they're testing it out, not playing the objective as much, so they're going for kills. Who knows? I can't really take much away from that, but I'm all for it. They're definitely, if they think there's a way to get Apocalypse in, they think it's a good map, I'll support it 100%. I think Crossroads for me might be the map that goes. There's just been that, you know, big issue with the fourth hard point for stage 1. It was in that back left corner, and that was on the same side of P3, which is in fire. So if you got those back spawns for P3 and P4, you could get, you know, a good chunk of time on those. But also in the back right corner on Crossroads, there was like a spawn bug where, like, if you don't have that really anchored down, or, you know, you don't have solidified control of that back area, you can get a wonky spawn and kind of, you know, throw things out of balance. And now in the last patch, they moved P4 down to where A-bomb is. I believe it's A-bomb on Crossroads, down by ice. And that's just, it's a really scrappy hill. You know, P1 is over by tank, and it's directly across from it. And both of those hills are just really scrappy. And, you know, like traditional first hard points on a lot of maps are very scrappy. So this hill, the new P4 on Crossroads, is very, I don't want to say scrappy again, but I'm gonna.
Contentious.
Yeah, so I don't know how much the pros obviously haven't really played on that because they were playing on the previous version of Crossroads to end stage 1. But I think if they wanted to find a way to get Apocalypse, at least Apocalypse hardpoint in the rotation, it might replace Crossroads. That could be a way to work. And then Express, I am 100% in. It's one, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite maps, but it's a really good map from Black Ops 2, and I enjoy it for Search and Destroy. And I think it was Crone who put up a poll about what maps it would replace.
I was about to bring it up.
There are definitely some options. I know some people don't like Miami. I personally enjoy Miami. I'm not going to say it's like the best map ever, but I think it's a good map for Search. You can, you know, there are ways to pull off multiple strats, and both bomb sites are actually viable. You can defend both bomb sites and you can attack both bomb sites. Unlike on Garrison, where it's just extremely hard to get to the A bomb site, which is outside of bricks and through green. You literally like have to go through power positions to get there, and that's part of the reason why Garrison is very defensively oriented or defensively favored. So if it was up to me, I would think that Express would be a good replacement for Garrison Search. Some people might say Checkmate too. I would be okay to see Express replace Checkmate as well, and I guess I would just enjoy to see Express Search and Destroy in the map pool, even if it replaced Miami. But I think that I would want to see Express replace Garrison or Checkmate before it replaces Miami.
Yeah.
And I also believe, I don't remember where I saw it, but I think somebody might have mentioned that they might test out Express for Control too. I'm not sure how that would work because obviously Control wasn't a thing in Black Ops 2. the points, I remember seeing a tweet when Express first joined in the game. The control points are kind of close to where the bombs are on each map. So by ticket and by the control area of the trains over by lockers. So it would kind of depend on where the defense spawns, how that other point by lockers. If the defense spawns close to that one, it might be hard to capture it. But I don't think there's any harm in testing it out for control. I don't know if it'll actually find its way into the map pool, but I would definitely like to see Express Search and Destroy join. And if there's a way to get Apocalypse in and the pros think it's good, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, so the poll you're referencing, Chrome put it up earlier today. It already has 29,000 votes, and the overwhelming majority say they want Miami removed. This was presumably for Express S&D to come in. So 49% said Miami to get removed, and then second place, 26% said Garrison, 22% said Checkmate, and then Moscow, he just put in a fourth one. It got 4%. Yeah. So
I like Moscow Search.
I think it's also. No, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say I voted for Garrison in the poll just because that's my least favorite map in the game. But looking through these responses, we got Arcity saying like Checkmate's kind of boring. That's the overall theme, and then a lot of people are just saying. I know Crone had a tweet like people might be thinking about Miami from a pub standpoint instead of just a search and destroy standpoint, and that could be part of the reason why Miami is so heavily voted. But just looking at these comments, like you got Apathy saying Garrison or Checkmate. Bevels says take out Garrison and Checkmate and add Apocalypse and Express. So obviously I have no idea how Apocalypse plays for search, but like if that's a viable solution, I'd be all for that. I think that'd be great. Definitely help for me and GBs. I could say that. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the pros talking about this. And I don't know, because obviously Stage 2 now, today, it's technically Thursday on the East Coast here. Stage 2 starts a week from today now, so I don't think we're going to see any map changes. I'd be surprised, at least, if we saw any map changes before Stage 2, but who knows?
Yeah, I voted for Garrison to get removed. I mostly did that because we see it so little. Like, I would just like another map that might get picked, because not a lot of teams are they're just like insta vetoing Garrison S&D. So like bring another map, maybe somebody will play it and we can have like more variety in a series. I also Carson from COD League Stats, he has some like very interesting stats about like attacks for S&D, and he tweeted that he would like Checkmate removed because it has the lowest offensive S&D round win percentage of any of the maps. It has a 36.57% win percentage. So, I mean, like, you obviously want it to kind of be as close to 50% as possible, but, like, that's obviously not going to happen for a lot of maps. Like, Miami is in fourth with 40.85, Garrison 41.51, Moscow 51.61, and Raid 54.29. So, like, you want it to be as contentious as possible for offensive and defensive round wins. I mean, I don't really have a problem as a viewer with Checkmate S&D. I mean, we saw a lot of really good Checkmate S&Ds in the major and Stage 1. Like the Optic Empire search comes to mind immediately. But yeah, I mean, like I don't really like Miami because it's a little bit boring. Just like because you have like such long range gun battles, it's a little boring at times. But I'd prefer Garrison to get kicked out.
Yeah, I think, our friend Tremor is a big proponent of the, he doesn't like Checkmate at all. He really hates Checkmate. And I think, the biggest problem with Checkmate, not to get too deep into it, is just it's all about plane. Like, that bomb's being in there, you got to get plane control. And the other bomb site is off to the other side in an alley. And it's like, you can dedicate one person to watching it. And they can kind of, if they just are throwing shoulders, like it's really hard to get control. That's like even if you flood it, then the people in plane are just immediately going to look down. So it's a little tough, but I definitely personally like Checkmate more than Garrison, but kind of like Bevel said, if Apocalypse and Express can replace those two maps, I think that'd be great. Do I think it's going to happen? Maybe not, but it's definitely an interesting topic.
Yeah, and just to go off of what you were saying, like I said, Carson he does a lot of stats, and it's more than just like KD, but like a team. This is over 300, or no, excuse me. This is just Checkmate S&D, and I'm not going to include preseason. So this is just the regular season. 36.57% offensive win percentage. That's atrocious on Checkmate.
Wow.
And if it's ridiculous how little any team goes A. So a slow A push happens 0.746% of the time. A fast A happens 2.24%. So literally you have a 3% chance that a team goes A on this map, like that dedicates themselves to A. That's obviously ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what the solution is. Maybe bringing the bomb site back, like to like the other side of Crate or something. I don't know what it is.
I don't think there's a fix to that extent. I think the only fix is if we think there's a better map, we just get rid of Checkmate.
Yeah, so maybe that'll happen. We'll see what happens. I don't really believe that they're gonna pull off like a map or two and put new maps in a week ahead of stage 2. But maybe by stage 3 we'll get new maps in. It'll be interesting.
Hopefully by stage 3, standoff is in the game. It's not confirmed. Haven't really heard about it. That's beyond just like fan hopes. But if we got standoff in, that'd be really cool. Especially if Express gets added with standoff and we have like a best of 5 where the first 3 maps are raid, Express, and standoff, or even standoff, Express, raid. Feel like Black Ops 2 again.
Yep.
And I would love that.
All right, so let's we have 2 more topics. We're gonna go MVP and Rookie of the Year at the moment. Who do you got for your MVP right now?
Man,
if the season ended today, I guess, which, I mean, coronavirus nearly ended the season like at this time last season, so it could happen.
I really think it's hard to say, go against anybody on FaZe, because obviously they just won the major.
Yep.
And Simp won player of stage 1, so if I had to pick an MVP, probably would have to go with Simp right now. But assuming you're going to pick someone on Atlanta FaZe, I am going to say Hook, just because he's been gross and really good. So I'll go with Hook to be different.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably pick Simp, but I hate that MVP awards are just like who's the best player on the winning team, because that's not like, I mean, personally, that's just not how I think about things. Like I thought that, like, a lot of, like, when I put my top 5 together for last season, I mean, I put players all over from, like, Skies, Octane, Simp, Celium. So, like, I didn't just pick, like, who's gonna win this entire, like, champs. Like, I just picked random players that I thought were good. But, yeah, I would say Simp if you're gonna say FaZe. I think Hook has been incredible. He's been, like, a breakout star, like, we saw Shotzi win MVP last year. It's very possible we see Hook win MVP this year, especially if he keeps this kind of play up and Empire can get over that hurdle with FaZe. Also, Awakening, I said this, I tweeted about this. I said if Florida can get their shit together, then Awakening should be an MVP candidate at the end of the year, because he is that good and he's played that well.
I think, if he keeps playing the way he's playing, even if Florida struggles, he's still an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
But kind of like how you were touching on it, the way MVPs are done in traditional sports and, just overall, if Florida continues to struggle, he's not going to be a serious contender for it. He will be a candidate probably at the end of the year, but he likely wouldn't win it just because if Florida is struggling, his stats wouldn't mean as much to someone like Simp, where, he's putting up numbers and his team are winning the events.
Yeah. And who do you got for Rookie of the Year right now?
You go first.
I'll say Diamond Con. I mean, I probably think Fire has a case right now. I don't think Neptune really does, and that's surprising. after stage one. But I would say Diamond Con, they looked really, really good as a team. And in that Optic series, I know people are saying like House of Slytherin and everything, it's just, that's hysterical. But I mean, uh, I still think he's a welcome surprise. I had no idea about this guy before like NYSL picked him up. So I mean, for him to be this good and on a top 3 team at the moment, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think Diamond Con's the easy answer right now, just because, kind of how we're talking about MVP. Diamond Con is right now the best rookie on there. He's the best rookie on a good team, or
Yeah.
one of the top teams. So, yeah, I think he would be the easy answer. Obviously, for the most part, he's been running that XM4. Sometimes he's had a sub in his hand in search. I've seen just off the top of my head. I remember couple instances where he has sub, but he's mainly been a AR player. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs if the XM4 is definitively GA'd. But for the sake of being different, I will say Neptune. I think Fire obviously he didn't play amazing in stage 1 group play, but he had a really good series in the major. The only problem is Paris lost their only series in the major, so we only got to see him play that one best of 5 against Florida. So from that standpoint, I would put Neptune above Fire just in that. I mean, we've seen Neptune more at this point, and I think Neptune's really good. So I think you got Diamond Con. I would probably pick him too, but for the sake of the argument, I'll go with Neptune as my rookie of the year right now.
Yeah, and now we have Insight, who he would classify as a rookie. He wasn't in CDL last year. I don't think he's ever been on like a technical pro team or whatever.
No.
However people described pro teams back then. I think that's it. I think there's only 4 in the entire league.
We would get HyDra if HyDra plays at one point.
So
nobody on Seattle.
There's a few subs like.
What about Parasite? Parasite could be a rookie of the year.
Oh, I mean, I guess. I would love for him to win rookie of the year, just so we have new criteria for how to actually give that award out. Because rookies are. I mean, Iggs has like an entire rant about this, like every year or two, like what is classified as a rookie, because amateurs like. They played for like 8 years basically before this, so
that was a big thing for me. I don't want to get too far off topic, but when I got to interview Pharaoh at World War II Champs, I was talking to him about that angle of him being the rookie of the year in World War II, because in my eyes, those guys like Kenny, TJ, Temp, they weren't really rookies to me, because we had already, there had been a couple of years since they had competed, but those guys played, in AW on the big stage on pro teams. So to me, that was their rookie year. Like, I get they had a break and it was technically their first year in the CDL or CWL at that time. And a lot of people voted for Kenny to be their rookie of the year, but just for me, I thought, that was Pharaoh's first actual year in pro play. And in my eyes, I thought he was the rookie of the year. And I remember I mean, that was a great interview, but his quote was basically along the lines of, yeah, I'm the rookie of the year.
Yeah. I mean, rookies are it's an impossible, like, the term professional and term amateur, those are very different among people, because, I mean, some would say, like, top 16 back when you had, like, open tournaments, like, that would be considered professional, but, I mean, if you're getting paid a salary and you're, getting your funds covered to go to LAN events, I don't know, like, some people would also consider that to be pro. I think it's so weird. We don't have like a system like the NFL or NBA or MLB where it's like, okay, like, yeah, this is your first time in like the big league. This league has only been around 2 years. So, I mean, we can't really, like, not even 2 years. This is the second season and we're only 2 months in. So, to say like Parasite, for example, could realistically be the rookie of the year because he had never been on a CDL team before. But he also is a former world champion and won like a shit ton of events in like 2013-14. So it's very odd.
Yeah, I think that's a problem just right now. I think as Call of Duty progresses, and obviously these older players retire, move on. It won't be as big of a deal. But at least for now, I think at least this year we definitely have some solidified candidates, not including Parasite, when we're looking at Diamond Con, Fire, Neptune, and now most likely Insight and potentially HyDra later on.
Mm-hmm. And finally, we have power rankings. We're going to update our power rankings. If I think that was episode 1 or it's the lost episode. I honestly don't know.
Lost episode.
It is the lost episode. So, okay. No chance that we remember exactly what our power rankings were unless we wrote it down, which I definitely didn't. Our power rankings are not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I mean, I don't like doing it because it's very hard to pick 8 over 9. But so we kind of do it in tiers. At least that's what I thought we were doing. So what
that's
are your?
Fine with me.
I mean, I don't really care. That's just how we did it last time. So what are your power rankings right now after stage 1?
Yeah, so I think I think before I did like tier 1, 2, 3, etc. I think tier, right now it might be a little bit easier to do it from a letter standpoint. So I think I would put Atlanta in S tier by themselves, clearing away the best team in the game right now. I would probably put Dallas in Optic in tier A. I think New York is like an A minus B plus in my eyes right now, so I don't really know where I want to put them. But I'll say, we'll put them in A for now. So Dallas, OG, and New York in that next tier below Atlanta. Then I would probably throw in Thieves I would throw the Gorillas, Florida, and the Thieves together in a group, and then the rest of the pack after that. And my initial, if we're looking at it from just a non-tier standpoint, I was kind of looking at, FaZe 1, Dallas 2, Optic 3, New York 4, LA Thieves 5. And I think that order is kind of, just based on how they performed in the major. I think that's fine with me. I know New York got 3rd. I know they beat Optic, but Optic also beat them. I still think Optic is the better team, and aside from placing, so... I understand some people might disagree with that, and I can definitely, if there's a case to be made that you could put New York ahead of Optic, but for me, I got Optic ahead of New York. And then other than that, towards the end of the pack, I just think the only thing that stands out to me is the Gorillas getting top 6 in the major, kind of pushes them up in the power rankings for me a little bit, and then Florida performing well, at least, better than they did in group play. That kind of moves them up, but definitely in our preseason power rankings, we had them higher, and then they would have probably moved down a lot after group play, and now they've just moved up a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think Atlanta is like 1, like if I had to put numbers on it. And then below that, I would say like there's a tier where it's like they could beat Atlanta, but they're just not there yet. And I think that's Dallas and Optic.
Yep.
And I wanted to put Subliners in this group as well because Subliners obviously, like you said, beat Optic, and they looked really good at certain points, like incredible team. They nearly beat Dallas before getting reverse swept. It's just maybe with more practice they actually do get there, but for right now I would say that they are in like this next tier with LA Thieves, where it's like they have a little more work to go. Like they're not in that second tier yet, but they're really on the cusp of it. And then there's a bunch of teams in this middle tier where it's kind of like any given day they could beat them. They probably won't though. Like it's more like a 10% they'll beat them, 90% they won't. And that's like I just put 6 through 10. It's LAG, Minnesota, Paris, Toronto, Florida. And Florida could bump up to that next tier very easily, in my opinion. They nearly beat Subliners. They have a lot of potential. They just need to realize that potential. And then I have the bottom feeders, London and Seattle. London, obviously, with their roster, with Alex there, and Zero there, I think it's different. They're probably not a bottom feeder, but I mean they have not won. I don't think they've won a search or something like that.
They did. I don't remember when.
So
was it against Toronto?
I have the stats in my Google Drive. I just don't want to bring them up right now because I know I'll just
Yeah.
like lag my computer. But
Yeah, they won Garrison search against Toronto in this major, so I think that was their first and only search win of the season so far. But yeah,
Yeah.
regardless, that they are undisputably the worst team, regardless of circumstances.
Yeah.
Like you said, it might be a little different with Alex and Zero in the lineup, but
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do. There's nothing they can do about that right now. So at this point, they are just the worst team right now in the league.
Yeah, and I put them with Seattle because Seattle has no excuses. Like they don't have the excuses that London does, and yet they're still bad, and they were bad last year. They were actually the only team to get no prize money from champs and from the first major of this season. And that's obviously really depressing if you're a Seattle fan because LAG, who finished last place in champs last year, they won $10,000 for finishing sixth or something or seventh or something, and so they basically got more prize money from this event than they did all of last season. So I think it's always interesting, and maybe I think the Surge will end up making a roster change unless things just miraculously change.
Yep, I think that was a good way to break it down.
I think we've covered all the topics. We've went through the major, unless there is anything else that I'm not thinking of.
No, I think that's about it. Lot to unpack in this episode, obviously with the major and some stuff going on, like we talked about with Methodz and HyDra getting here, etc., all that. But obviously, stage 2, we got a little break now, and we wanted to get this pod out before the stage 2 groups are drawn and before stage 2 group play kicks off, so that we can do another episode early next week talking about stage 2 specifically and our predictions for that.
Yep. So that's gonna do it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This will be hopefully spliced together so it won't be incredibly weird when it goes on YouTube and Spotify and everything. But yeah, this was a pretty long podcast for us. Yep, thanks for listening. Subscribe, Spotify. If you are on Apple Podcast, give us a 5-star rating. It helps us. I think we have 2 ratings. Both of them are 5 stars. So I love that. We've actually gotten more listens on the podcast every single episode. So let's continue that trend because that's incredible. I was not expecting that at all. This will be up on Thursday on YouTube and Spotify and hopefully other places as well. Just kind of depends on how they distribute it. But yeah, for me, thank you guys and have a good night.
Yep. Always remember, send the chow.